this week's episode of Soul Eater Not, Sugumi and her friends are preparing for Halloween by planting pumpkins, playing baseball, and getting into all sorts of shenanigans. This week's episode also happens to be the Dude, Where's My Car episode, because there's this great little story at the beginning about Mei Mei having this weird day where she suddenly just forgets everything. Forget long-term, short-term memory loss. She just has memory loss, period, and it makes her go through this little storyline where she has to retrace all her steps, figure out what happened, and it's almost impossible to describe how ridiculous it is. All I know is, what I loved most about the scene is the fact that she has this sloth with her the entire time, and she finds it because Eternal Feather is trying to pass it off to her, and Eternal Feather, this chick just cannot catch a break. She is the Meg of this show, and it's actually pretty funny. But still, I like the fact that she's actually wearing the sloth on her head, and just that image alone to me was so funny that it just had to be the thumbnail this week, even though a lot of other cool things happened this week. There's also a scene at the beginning of the episode where you got to see Anya and Mei Mei fighting, because Mei Mei fights in her sleep. This was hinted at in some earlier episodes. This week, though, it really pops off, and it looks awesome. I actually like the fact that it's very similar to drunk boxing, but they still manage to apply, like, all the sleep stuff to it. Like, she rolls around on the floor, and there's this great scene where Anya tries to kick her, but Mei Mei deflects it because her leg has a cramp, and it causes her leg to go up in the air and actually block the kick. It's really creative, and frankly, it's pretty badass. Fans of baseball will also like this scene where Sugumi is trying to school Anya and Mei Mei on the rules of baseball, and they have this little short match where Anya's going to be the batter, Sugumi is going to be the pitcher, and this is a really, really tense scene because Sugumi really, really wants Anya to appreciate baseball, but Anya just sees it as just sort of a commoner sport, and she really doesn't care for it, and she doesn't even know anything about it. Just the way she's holding the bat is weird. As Sugumi would describe, it's a disaster, but she still manages to hit the crap out of this ball in a really awesome way. So Sugumi sends this pitch flying, and then Anya hits it with the front of the bat and sends it flying, and it leaves this huge shockwave, and even Mei Mei manages to catch it in a really flashy way. And the scene ends in a really nice, bubbly manner, with Anya actually starting to really appreciate baseball. This makes Sugumi happy, and that's pretty much the rest of the episode. It's just a lot of bits are just tied up with all these cute moments where the girls are planting the pumpkins for Halloween, and throughout the episode you see them watering it while they're singing a song. And at the very end of the episode, they're finally finishing up, and everybody in town is putting up their Halloween decorations and getting ready for the big night. And I love this because it's finally starting to resemble Soul Eater here with all the crazy decorations and everything, and the pumpkins and the bats. And speaking of bats, there's also this bat whistle they have, which is another ridiculous funny moment. So there's just a ton of those things in this week's episode. Personally, though, for me, this episode is still kind of a mixed bag. I'm really not a big fan of the whole slice of life comedy thing. I was still hoping to see a little bit more about the universe of Soul Eater and learn a little bit more about it. But it seems like they're really just like holding that stuff off, because at the very end of the episode, there is a short shot of Shaola Gorgon, and she even says trick or treat, and that's pretty much it. So what's the rundown on this week's episode of Soul Eater Not? The animation and the artwork was actually pretty nice this week. Nothing too spectacular, but it wasn't bad either. Definitely middle-of-the-road stuff, but everything looked pretty clean. Voice acting and everything was nice and cute, especially when all the three girls were singing their songs. Some of the action scenes this week were actually really cool. The baseball scene and the scene at the beginning where Mei Mei was fighting her sleep was actually really well done, and I thought it was exciting. There was a ton of goofy moments, a ton of fan service, which is this series is definitely known for. And all of those Yuri undertones are definitely sprinkled throughout the entire episode. But I'm glad that we're finally starting to get to the Halloween night, because that's when the story is hopefully going to get a little more interesting. Maybe Shaola will finally do something other than look completely menacing and have one line of dialogue per episode. I think it's a crime, because she looks like she's a really interesting character. Maybe they're building up to something really massive here. I'm not quite sure. But I'm excited, if anything. So I'm going to give this week's episode a 7 out of 10. Definitely middle of the road, but it still had a lot of entertaining moments, some funny bits, and frankly, it was just a cute, heartwarming episode, but really nothing too spectacular. But make sure to check it out if you are following the series, because it will maybe get you excited for some of the coming episodes, especially when Halloween is in town. So check it out, guys. 7 out of 10. If you guys saw this week's episode of Soul Eater Not, I would love to hear your thoughts about it. You can tell me with your comments below. What did you think about this week's episode? Did you have any favorite funny moments? What did you think of that action scene at the beginning? And what is Shaola Gorgon's big evil plan? Remember, guys, before you leave, make sure and hit that like button so you can give this video a thumbs up. Really, really easy to do, and make sure to subscribe to the channel so you can see all of our latest anime and manga reviews. You can also check us out on Facebook and on Twitter, so I'll put links to those in the description box below. And I will see you next time, guys. Super Kami Guru 9000. Out.